Let me, if you haven't seen this, let me share with you a little bit about what the Times editorial board had to say, and it's talking about Mr. de Blasio. It says that he has a formidable rival in Mr. Cuomo, who has spent months disparaging the mayor's pre-K tax while offering his own blank check to expand full-day pre-K statewide. Mr. Blasio, they went on to say, seemed to be thrown off stride by that and other run-ins as he and his policies came under ferocious attack from different directions. And adding to the mayor's headaches are some potentially huge retroactive pay raises with the unions, and we're going to be getting into that with Dominic in a second. But the point is, the Times went out of their way to say that he seems to be one step behind the governor on this, that he's playing catch-up, and that if not ready for prime time, and Dom and others at this table have said before, that he's gotten outmaneuvered. Would you say that's a fair at least snapshot, whether it's fair or not to do it? That seems to be consensus here, that he's getting played a little bit by the governor.
Well, I mean, yeah, you look at the cases we've seen, and it depends on a case-by-case basis, but he does seem to have gotten outmaneuvered. And I'm not so certain that these are things that the governor has set out to do as much as de Blasio's errors have given the governor an opening to do them. So on the whole charter school issue, that was something that if the de Blasio administration had perhaps handled it differently, he wouldn't have given the mayor that, the governor rather, that opening. So I think we've seen a few of those. I think time's going to tell. You know, my take on this is de Blasio has to be a little bit more sensitive to his institutional position and the power he has and doesn't have, and to use it wisely. I mean, he's got to be very careful about not overplaying his hand in certain cases and then getting it whacked off when he sticks it out. And, you know, he may do that on purpose for political reasons. He's got to be careful about that. He's still got, what, 152 contracts out there to negotiate?
Well, you know, Richard, I think the thing is, the public got a civics lesson if they didn't know it already. The mayor of New York City needs Albany to go along when he's got a big project here. And a lot of people, if anyone thought he can act unilaterally, whether they shouldn't or shouldn't have, they got a very clear lesson here that it sounds good, but Albany's got to go along to get along.
Well, what's extraordinary here is that for some reason de Blasio is getting blamed for what Andrew Cuomo did. And I'm not sure how that logic plays. Whatever it is that Bill de Blasio said on economic issues, tax the rich to pay for pre-K, no. Local minimum wage, no. Charter schools need to be funded differently, no. I think what's happening here is Andrew Cuomo is reestablishing himself as the alpha male in New York politics. Now, you can like that or you can dislike it. Why you blame Bill de Blasio for it strikes me as just bizarre.
Because he seems like he made these statements like it was going to happen. And now the perception is he's not getting it. Whether he did or didn't, the perception was we're getting universal pre-K.
He did make the statements like they were going to happen. We disagree on this.
He's getting universal pre-K.
And his mistake, everybody in the state of New York, including high school freshmen, knew that Governor Cuomo was running for re-election and possibly for president, and that he had promised a tax cut. So why would you go to Albany in an election year with the incumbent governor of Cuomo? Right, but it's never going to happen.
Well, that doesn't mean you
that means you're going to lose to begin with.
You go back to the people of the city and you say, I told you I would do this during the campaign, but now I'm not.
But Richard, here's my point. If in the end, let's say he gets some version of universal pre-K, even if it's for 1 year without the additional 4 years guaranteed. Let's say however it's funded and forever how long, there's some universal pre-K. Hasn't he set the parameters of this, that if he doesn't get it on his terms, he didn't get what he wanted? I disagree with you.
The fact of the matter is that in September, when he's opening all the new pre-K centers, he will justly be able to say, if it wasn't for what I promised you during the campaign and delivered on, this wouldn't be happening. Now, whether in the muscling of the policy through, he got everything he wanted, that's perfectly legitimate criticism. But it doesn't tell you what matters in the lives of the people of the city, which is whether they get pre-K and whether Bill de Blasio is responsible for them getting pre-K.
But here's the issue I have. Is this about pre-K, which you're absolutely right, he's going to get, and he could have taken from the governor, or is this about taxing? And this has been about taxing, and that's where I think de Blasio made an unforced error.
Both.
Well, he is thinking about the kids in universal pre-K, or he's thinking about taxing. When the governor says, Dominic's right, it ain't going to happen with taxing, but I'm going to give it to you this way. He didn't accept that. Instead, he still fought for raising taxes.
Promised the
but
people
why
of the city.
so? And the problem I have is why so intent on the raising the taxes? If you could do your policy without raising those taxes,
because that was what he said he would do.
Politically, it doesn't make sense.
That's not what the polls show. Polls show great support
He's
for the
at
tax.
39%.
Right.
No, not
but
him.
His numbers are taking a
His
tremendous.
numbers are
You don't know
diving.
why his numbers are taking a beating, and you don't know what it's
I'll
from.
give you a hint as
and
to
you-
why, though, Richard. It might be the Times made a reference to him. And they say he's got time, and they say he's got good ideas, but he's coming across as a student driver, which after 2 months on the job, in the most demanding mayoralty in America, I understand why. But the perception and their choice of description of a student
That is
driver
largely,
indicates why he's under
that
40%.
is largely a function of the decision by Governor Cuomo to smack him with a stick every time he put his head above
But
the
he
horizon.
had to know the smack was coming.
You know,
He should know.
whether you can hold Bill de Blasio responsible for Andrew Cuomo's political agenda strikes me as a trifle unfair.
Well, Dominic, he's got other things to balance, and just like they said, you got to do a lot of things when you first learn to drive the car here, work at the clutch, and all the other analogies they did. But one of them is contracts, right?
Yes, indeed. And for the first time, Richard, to be very clear about this, in years, it appears that both sides in contract talks between the city and municipal unions, they want a deal. Now, let's start with the city's new mayor we've been talking about during the show, Mayor de Blasio. While he does have to walk a fine line with union negotiations, he has to deliver for loyal allies like the unions without jeopardizing New York's finances in what are still tough fiscal times. When it comes to the teachers, the city's position in this intense negotiations over the past week, people briefed on the talk say the city has asserted that it cannot afford the $3.4 billion, and Richard, that is just retroactive raises, 4%, that the union is demanding for 2 of the 4 years. So they've been working without a contract for a while, and what the city is offering, and this is interesting, the longest ever contract with the teachers union, a 9-year deal that would let the city stretch out potentially huge retroactive pay increases. So in concluding here, Richard, the Bloomberg administration has to be, the de Blasio administration has to be very careful with this negotiations with the United Federation of Teachers, because it's a tricky situation, and here's why. And Mr. Blasio can tell you, as well as the professor, much more about this. Whatever deal the teachers union receives is called pattern bargaining. Other unions are going to want the same, which can cost billions.
Now, is this funny math, 9 years, or is it smart that you're spreading this out over this period?
It's probably both. The difficulty here is the city doesn't have the money to pay for these raises. The state and Governor Cuomo isn't helping.
Yep.
And he's got to find a way to deal with this. I'm always puzzled when commentators talk about this as loyal allies. Who did the teachers union endorse?
Bill Thompson.
Then what does he owe the teachers union? He's got to govern the
strong
city.
Democratic ally. They still turned out the vote.
They did indeed.
You could have beat Joe Lota.
But wait a minute. But wait a minute. This is not about him paying back an ally. This is about him managing the city's finances. If a 9-year contract enables him to do that, it may be in everyone's interest to settle along those lines. Just every time he raises his head, you Cuomoites decide to say, there he goes, he doesn't know how to drive the car
So
yet.
is that the new term? Giuliani told me, Rangel told me I was drinking Giuliani water. So is that the new term?
Turns out there's a pattern here, Dominic.
There's a pattern?
He doesn't have a choice, right?
I don't think so. I mean, we've always known this is such a tough position for him to be in.
9 contracts, right?
A bunch of them.
Of them, and you know, he's, you know, we shouldn't be talking about him as a student driver in this context. This is hard for the best and longest standing mayor. I mean, Bloomberg didn't, let these ride for so long. So, you know,
He's
hopefully they're able to
inheriting
work
a set
it
of
out.
problems that Bloomberg
Enormous
and
problems.
Cuomo handed him, and he's getting the blame. If he's not smart enough to get out of that box, that's fine. But look,
That's life in the big city, Richard.
I don't doubt it. If there's a criticism of Bill de Blasio, it's that his political career was largely that of a person who took positions. He can't do that anymore. He's got to make decisions. And in the transition from taking positions to making decisions, it can be difficult. But the notion that he doesn't know how to drive the car, I mean, really.
He also has to negotiate.
Let's leave the mayor alone for it, because this next one is a little fascinating to me. You got Reverend Al Sharpton, never short of opinions, but what he had to say about longtime Congressman Charlie Rangel, and I thought the two were close at least for a while here. They're not exchanging Christmas cards here. He believes that Charlie Rangel should not be afforded here a final unchallenged term or given a graceful exit. Rangel's been in office 44 years, Sharpton said in news reports. I remember as a kid, Rangel ran against Adam Clayton Powell, talking about in the Wayback Machine, and he won. And now all of a sudden, people are going to tell us, well, let Rangel retire in office. He didn't let Adam retire in office. Rangel responded, I'm surprised that Reverend Sharpton would say that because he has been one of my greatest supporters since I've been in Congress. Okay, what's going on here, Dominic?
Well, Reverend Sharpton's comment is very interesting because remember when Rangel beat Adam Clayton Powell. Adam Clayton Powell was considered the king of Harlem, one of the only black members in Congress.
From the four big families.
That's right. And all of a sudden, Rangel came along when he was a little vulnerable, and boom. And so now Sharpton is saying you shouldn't be given the same respect that you wanted when it was up against.
But Sharpton's got loyalty to no one. Bill Thompson can testify to that. Okay,
right.
So and when he beat Clayton Powell IV, I didn't see Sharpton cry in tears then. Why all of a sudden now does he care?
Bottom line is Reverend Sharpton's saying there's a new sheriff in town. And all of black politicians in private, they complain about Sharpton. They say, why does he get all the attention? Why do you guys focus on him? A few reverends have come forward at a news conference to say, stop paying much attention to Sharpton. Sharpton is laying down the foundation. Nothing happens unless I say it happens. Period.
Interesting. You surprised at all by how strong he went?
Well, he didn't do it by accident, that's for sure. My guess is he has a candidate he'd like to see take the seat, and he's trying to chase Rangel out because in there, when there was a two head-to-head primary, who knows how it comes out. If he miscalculates and Rangel runs, and his candidate runs, and Adriano Espaillat runs, Espaillat is in fairly good shape. This is high-stakes poker. How much of it is about the interests of people of Harlem is to be seen.
And it would be a shame if this is a very ugly exit to a very long and tenured time.
Everybody relax. Charlie Rangel didn't get that seat without making an ugly attack, if you want to use that word, on the predecessor. Charlie understands that there are no sacred cows, that he's always going to be a target. Let's see what happens.
Everybody relax. All right. Now, when we come back, I sit down with Congresswoman Nita Lowey to talk about what it's like to be a Democrat in Congress right now. And while she may be secure in her position, doesn't go for a whole lot of Democrats right now. We're looking at the numbers of their president and also some of the math. We're going to talk about that after this.